We start with a load of nut jobs tattooing barcodes on the back of some kiddies' heads, whilst a montage shows them being indoctrinated worse than at a mainstream comprehensive school. Anyway, after the opening credits, where they unironically use clips from the early noughties show Dark Angel because cost-cutting measures, bro, an Interpol agent called Mike finds some baldy bugger in his gaff and pointing a gat at him. Apparently, this is that Hitman fella from the film's title, and also all them game thingies on my brother's PlayStation. He then asks him the super important question of how does a good man decide when to kill? And before you can say, usually when that rabid raccoon finally decides to go for your neighbour's kid, we cut to 3 months prior, where it turns out Mikey boy has been hunting this Hitman fella for years, despite him seemingly hiding out in his own frigging house. No! Anyway, the assassin works for an organisation known only as the Organisation. An organisation so secret that no one knows the organisation even exists. Apparently, this organisation called the Organisation has ties to every government in the world, and its sole purpose is to train and brainwash orphans and societal rejects into hardened professional killers. And before you can say, so it's just the CIA's MKUltra program on steroids, the hit fella goes and assassinates an African warlord by making his soon-to-be hostage swallow a bomb and delivering him to his henchman, who seems to have not asked basic questions as to why the guy's throat is sewn up and why he was served up to them on a plate by bald Americans so easily. Elsewhere, Interpol Mike says the elusive suspect has killed over 100 men, and hilariously admits that he's been chasing this ghost for over 3 years and has found the square root of diddly and squat. You know, if I was in a role where it was my one job to find a suspect, and 3 years later I was running around the country with my dick in my hands trying to expose a shadowy organisation called the Organisation and was always still 10 steps behind, I'd be fired before my bosses could even say, maybe you're just a conspiracy theorist and need to stop drinking so much tap water, son. But anyway, over in Russian East St. Petersburg, the Hitman fella has a shower in a hotel, but unfortunately can't scrub off that blasted barcode, no matter how much Dove Beauty cream shower gel he uses. A little later, and his computerised handler gives him his next target, which is offing some Russian official in a very public and unsubtle manner. So he cosplays as Lee Harvey Oswald and proceeds to blast Mikhail Belikov's noggin off by a sniper rifle from 4 kilometres away, and surely getting the high score in sniper assassin mode. But as he's getting the train home, that computer lass says he fucked up, and there was totally a witness who saw him do all them bad things. So he hunts down this Nika broad and is apparently about to pull out his shooter and cap her in broad daylight, when he notices that she also has a butt ugly tattoo on her head and so hesitates in a random moment of empathy. Also, she spots him but doesn't run away screaming, so he totally knows she actually witnessed fuck all and thus he's being set up. Which is quickly confirmed when another baldy bugger starts popping shots off at him in the middle of the street. Meanwhile, Interpol Mike and his chocolatey bum buddy is hot on his trail, and they get a tip off from a random hotel concierge that baldy bozo they're after is totally staying at their place and scoffing all their caviar and shit. Back in his room, the hit chap can't believe the computer lass is holding out on him and not transferring the Wonga, because she reckons he totally missed and that Mikhail Belikov fella is still alive and well, and proceeds to play a live news clip to prove it. Bruh. But the literal hitman, what always gets the high score in sniper assassin mode, says that's defamation because he totally doesn't miss. And besides, he watched with his own eyes when that geezer's mind got blown harder than Joe Biden's when you tell him that LGBTQ is not actually the full alphabet. What? And the computer girl goes silent after he demands to know who the client was who's clearly set him up harder than a slimy Trump advisor. Meanwhile, Interpol Mike gets told by Chief FSB agent Robert T-Bag Canepa to stay out of their way, cause he has no jurisdiction here and they're totally going to shoot that bald fucker on sight. Whilst up in the room, the computer skank calls up the hit chap IRL and tells him the client was Belikov himself, and then warns him to get the heck out of Dodge. But in a move that would finally bring a smile to Michael Caine's face, the SWAT team blow his bloody doors off. But luckily, the hit fella totally jumps out the window and swings on a random rope what he conveniently set up earlier, just in case something like this that he had no way of knowing would ever happen, happened, and promptly swings into the room of 2 teenage boys. And before you can say, how the fuck does Hitman Blood Money exist in the same universe as the ultra-secretive organisation program in this movie's reality? He retrieves a pair of shooters from an ice machine what he must have stashed there earlier because reasons, and proceeds to shoot up a bunch of unnamed stuntmen in SWAT gear, before expending all of his ammo and finally coming face to face with Interpol Mike, who's waited for this moment for over 3 years. But he's so useless he can't even stop a now unarmed barefoot bloke from escaping into the river below. So, despite presumably having no money on him, and even if he did it must all be waterlogged and unusable now, he buys himself a snazzy new suit like the ones in the video games and shit. Whilst Interpol Mike inspects the gear he left behind in the room when he was blown up harder than a Hillary Clinton witness. And Chief FSB agent Robert T-Bag Knepper again also tells him to sod off, because he's bloody useless and totally has no authority here, bro. Knowing there's now a hit out on both himself and that Nika bird because reasons, he takes her to a secluded motel and interrogates her on what she knows about this crazy madcap plot. And turns out she was Belikov's whore and was just told to meet his driver, also because reasons. So he goes to kill her after she says she don't know anything more, but again gets overcome by sentiment when he sees her tattoo and gets flashbacks to his Dark Angel days, when they kept drawing on his head and making him watch propaganda videos and shit. She then says Belikov's brother Udre is totally being hunted and both the CIA and FSB want him gone, but his older sibling Mikhail has been protecting him. The hit dude then works out that Belikov hired him to kill himself and used her to set him up. Or some shit. But she's as good as dead without him, so she needs to stick close and shut up if she wants to keep doing that living thing. Anyway, so they take a trip to the train station for a nice day out, which is swiftly ruined by one of them baldy buggers trying to mess up his day by killing him and shit. But this geezer won't say why there's a hit out on the organisation's best agent for absolutely no fucking reason, and it's soon set upon by 3 more baldy fucks inside an empty train carriage. And before you can say...
What is this, Baldies Unite?
Yeah! Baldies Unite!
They get into a Mexican standoff aiming straps at each other, until they randomly decide to put their shooters away because reasons. Despite 3 of them being there all for the same purpose, i.e. to kill the main hitman fella. So instead of simply neutralising their mutual target swiftly and cleanly, given they easily outnumber him, they all pull out katana swords on their asses and try to slice each other up, also because reasons. And before you can say, I must have missed the part where Agent 47 has random sword fights in the video games based around non-confrontational silent stealth missions. He's bested the lot of them and has now taken Interpol Mike's chocolatey bum buddy as a hostage. Naturally, the copper volunteers to swap if he needs a human shield, but the hitman chap with ultra high standards says he don't want no stinking Interpol Mike, and shoots the silly twat before knocking out the chocolate Wally. And he's about to kill Mikey boy until Nika intervenes by giving him puppy dog eyes from behind and tells him to stop doing all these bad things. Later, Chief FSB agent Robert T-Bag Knepper laughs at Interpol Mike's broken ribs and says he's totally using the body of that dead old bald guy to do a cover-up, bro. Elsewhere, the hit cuck says he can't allow her to go around interfering with his work and making him look like a right melt in front of his victims, and if she hadn't just told him her emotionally painful backstory, he'd totally kill her right there and then. A little later, Interpol Mike and his chocolatey bum buddy use the gear they recovered from their enemy's hotel room to spy on Chief FSB agent Robert T-Bag Knepper, who's secretly talking to that Belikov villain. That night, the hitman talks to an old Fed boy ally and discovers his agency has thrown him under the bus because the real Belikov guy was becoming a wet wipe in his old age, and so they bumped him off and replaced him with one of their own puppets, complete with a face-off type facial surgery, and just told the world that the assassin totally missed his shot earlier, despite clearly blowing his brains out all over his poor bodyguard and bringing a whole new meaning to the phrase basking in his wisdom. Anyway, Nika and the hit loser are the only ones who know he's a double, so that's why they're now targets. So, low on options, he says he'll kill that Udre fella what the CIA want gone in return for a very special favour at some point in the near future, and tells him not to panic because it totally doesn't include Dove body wash like the last time. Anyway, so after staring at Nika's boobies, because apparently this stone cold silent killer is also an incel virgin fella what's never seen tits before, he takes her to dinner, where he goes all transphobic by pointing out that ain't a real woman at the table behind, and then rudely assassinating a guy in the box after vomiting up his expensive meal, before then taking his place in an arms deal to get close to Udre, who incidentally has the worst Russian accent since that fat guy what loves wrestling and bizarrely also birds in Iron Man 2. Anyway, he proceeds to shoot up the gaff and blow the noggin off of that Udre fella before flirting and bonding more with Nika on a road trip, where she says that when she was little, her dad raised grapes, and one day she wants to own her own vineyard when she's all grown up. But he just says, screw your pussy old dreams, because we've totally got a Ruski to kill. Elsewhere, Interpol Mike is sorting through his arch-nemesis' personal possessions like a right disrespectful thief and finds some sort of ye olde key in the shape of a cross. Meanwhile, the hit bloke tells Nika that he's going to take on the baddie alone so she can go live her life and shit. So she says, "Okay dude, but what's even your name, bro?" And he just says it's Keith. Achoo. I mean, he never really had a name, but his reference number on the back of his head is 47. Agent 47. Elsewhere, Chief FSB Agent Robert T. Canepa meets with baddie Mikhail Belikov face to face, which is super ironic given he's now complaining about how painful the face-off procedure was. Turns out he's well pissed that Chief FSB Agent Robert T. Canepa can't find or kill one man who can't even grow hair. Bruh. Especially since he's the one geezer left who can totally expose him and shit. Later, Chief FSB Agent Robert T. Canepa is packing up for the night until he gets kidnapped and put in a bath with some chains and a toy ducky. Though, turns out if he don't order the shooting of his mate Belikov by 2:30 PM, then a generator will start up and pump so much energy into the tub that he'll feel like a Duracell bunny before melting into a puddle of his own skin. Anyway, over at Udre's public funeral, Interpol Mike keeps an eye out for baldy fucks in snazzy suits, whilst the time closes in on 2:30 PM. But the sniper isn't able to kill Belikov quickly enough, and it looks like it's curtains for Chief FSB Agent Robert T. Canepa, who's about to get crispy fried in a bathtub. After the failed assassination, Belikov's henchmen try to rush him to safety, but the 47 fella mows him down in a gimp mask before dragging the baddie upstairs. Outside, Interpol Mike realises a religious connection between the cross-shaped key thing he found in his arch-nemesis' underwear drawer and the abbey he's currently at, and asks a random priest which door it fits. And he's all like, "Do I friggin' look like Keith Lemon?"
Hello, I'm Keith Lemon and welcome to Fruit Keyhole, the show in which I stick my nose and other parts of my body through celebrities' keyholes whilst our panel here in the studio have to guess whose keyhole it is.
Anyway, back in the chambers, Belikov tells the baldy bloke that if he kills him, then the organisation will never stop hunting him. Kinda like how Piers Morgan never stops hunting Chicken McNuggets. Bellycuck then offers 47 his life back, but the super successful hitman what always gets a top scoring sniper assassin says he don't want no stinking normal life where he has to pay bills and shit, and so shoots the John Travolta / Nicolas Cage face-off cosplayer in the noggin before letting himself get captured by Interpol Mike and his SWAT squad. Despite about to be sent off to jail for the rest of his days, 47 teases Interpol Mike in the rear of his car for shits and giggles, before the old CIA ex-ally guy creates a distraction, allowing the baldy barcode fucker to totally escape. And then we cut back to the opening scene, where the hairless assassin asks that random question again about how does a good man decide when to kill. Then 47 says he just wants to be left alone, because he's sick of this twat following him about like a Taylor Swift fangirl. Bruh. He's also set up the ingredients for a nice and tidy cover-up, and although Interpol Mike don't want to go along with such corrupt schemes, 47 says he bloody well better, for both their sakes. So naturally, Mikey boy totally cucks out and says, "Okay bro, but call me sometime, babe." And in the closing sequence, Nika gets a random letter in the mail, showing that someone has totally bought to that vineyard what she kept banging on about earlier, as the hitman walks off in slow motion in front of a truly terrible green screeny sky. And that's it. That's the movie. Though my favourite part was when the anti-hero based on the main character from an iconic stealth series starts shooting up the place worse than an MK Ultra kid at a high school. You know, he might be a top dog at sniper assassin, but how this fella's ever going to achieve silent assassin rating when he's out here taking coppers hostage and mowing down Russian security guards in a church, I don't know. But anyway, that's the plot and that's your lot. Considering that bell thing so you don't miss any future recaps. Tell me if you like this flick in the comments if you have time, and I'll see you in the next one.